By 1999, a young BMX rider named Dave Mirra was making his mark on the sport. That year's X Games saw him take home his 7th and 8th BMX gold medals. Then at the 2000 X Games, he made history by performing the first ever double backflip in competition, earning his 9th gold and cementing his status as a legend, all while still in his mid-20s. Meanwhile, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, or Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, depending on where you lived, was revolutionizing extreme sports games and bringing skateboarding into the mainstream. Acclaim Entertainment, then a thriving game publisher with hits such as NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat, wanted to get in on the action. And after signing the young prodigy himself, Acclaim entered this emerging market with 2000's Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX. My name is OneHip, and thanks for clicking on this video. I actually found a copy of this game about 3 weeks after finding its sequel at a retro game store, which I have already done a retrospective on. It wasn't a bargain like my first purchase, but it was selling at a decent price. I remember playing a bit of the original game at my friend's house on the PlayStation at the time, but going into this in the modern day gave me a real appreciation for how this series started, and how there was nothing like it in the BMX subgenre and in the year 2000 at the time. Here's my retrospective of Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX. Let's go! Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX was released between mid-September 2000 and early January 2001 on several platforms, including the PlayStation, Dreamcast, and Windows on PC. A Game Boy Color version, developed by Neon Studios, was also released in late 2000. The console and PC versions were developed by Z-Axis, the same team behind games like Thrasher Presents Skate and Destroy, and later Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2, among other extreme sports titles. All ports were published by Acclaim under their Max Sports label. The PlayStation version of the game received mostly favourable reviews from critics, while the Dreamcast and PC versions were considered average overall. The general consensus at the time was that while the game had its flaws and was possibly a bit too inspired by Tony Hawk, it was an enjoyable experience. A special edition of the game with new levels and music called Maximum Remix was released in May 2001. Reviews were mixed on this one too, with many critics noting that the new editions didn't justify a second purchase if you already owned the original. Activision, the publisher behind Tony Hawk, would develop their own BMX game in 2001 called Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX on a modified version of the first Hawk game's engine. And if you'd like retrospectives on that one or any other non-Tony Hawk title under the Activision O2 label, let me know in the comments. For this retrospective, I played the PlayStation version that I bought on the DuckStation emulator for PC. There was no widescreen patch I could find, so some footage might look a bit stretched at times. I knew going into this one that this was going to be a bit of a time capsule. Older games age in different ways, with some holding up surprisingly well, while others not so much. But I always try and give them a fair shot, and Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX was no exception. Like the Tony Hawk games, you hold the jump button to prepare for a trick and release it to jump. While in the air, tricks can be performed with the big air button, and many can be modified by either pressing the modifier button or by tapping the big air button again. These modified tricks are highlighted in red when you perform them. It's a really solid system, and when it works, it really works. You can pull off some insane modified tricks, such as a 180 rocket X-up candy bar or a no-hander 360 flare, and these feel awesome. You can also perform manuals, grinds, stall moves such as disasters, and wall tricks like fast plants and wall taps. You tap the left joystick forward to begin pedaling, as well as turning around, and you hold it down to brake. You use the trigger buttons to rotate in the air, and as far as I'm aware, you can't perform any fakey tricks like in the second game, which felt like a step back in hindsight, but understandable for the time. There are also ragdoll physics when you bail, which are still fun, despite the lack of chaos that later extreme sports titles by Acclaim would incorporate. The game also features height and length meters, which track how high you're getting or how far you're grinding or manualing. They also play a part in certain challenges, which I'll talk about later. There's There's also a trick list in the in-session options menu, which is always helpful, with tricks that you've already pulled off having a tick next to them. You can also adjust your camera setting in the same in-run options menu and turn off tutorial hints if you wish to do so. Grabs and flips are the highlights in terms of feel, and they're really satisfying to perform. However, I found grinds to be a bit awkward to hold, and there's no balance meter which makes it hard to judge how long you can maintain it for. For example, in the second level, I had to grind more than 15 meters as part of an amateur challenge. I thought it had to be done in one go, which felt borderline impossible, but I later realized that you could chain between multiple rails or objects to extend your grind distance, which was a relief. I realized after recording footage that this is also a thing in Dave Mirra too. Another frustrating issue was trying to build big air. A few challenges required me to reach certain height goals, but I'd often lose momentum for no clear reason, even on clean landings. Landing slightly off angle on a vert ramp completely killed my speed, forcing me to start all over again. And even when I landed perfectly, it sometimes still didn't carry the momentum that I expected. It made height-based challenges feel a little bit inconsistent. Let me know in the comments if you had these issues as well. There are 12 levels in total, with 6 challenge and 6 competition ones. The first 3 levels are set in the town of Greenville in North Carolina, where Dave and his brother Tim moved to in the 90s. This place became known as Pro Town due to the number of pro riders that trained there. The last 3 challenge levels are set at Woodward Camp, and the competition levels take place in various areas. The first 3 are styled as a pro tour, and the last 3 are Acclaim branded events. Competition levels were my favourite, as you could go to town with the solid flip and grab controls. You get 2 runs per event, and making the top 3 earns you a medal and unlocks the next stop. I think the game struck a nice balance between doing challenges and competitions. Leaping over a certain asset or knocking over or grinding 4 of a certain item can get old pretty quickly, and being able to switch it up with more open-ended runs helped keep things fresh. The levels themselves are much smaller than in Dave Mirra 2, obviously, but I felt that this was a quality over quantity situation. Most of them are well designed, with thoughtful flow and solid potential to pull off some sick combos. And given that the game released at the end of the original PlayStation's life cycle, it's clear that the devs were pushing the hardware to its limits. Thanks for still being here with me. If you want to see more retrospectives like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel to watch other Acclaim Z-Axis game retrospectives, as well as extreme sports and racing games from other studios like Neversoft and EA Black Box. Anyway, on to Dave Mirra's features and soundtrack. The game's core part is its career path, ProQuest. Like in Dave Mirra 2, you select your rider, bike, and outfit, and then complete challenges across a series of levels. These are grouped into amateur, pro, and hardcore tiers, which you can complete in sequence. And each challenge run gives you a 2-minute timer to complete as many objectives as possible. Once you complete the amateur tiers in a themed set, such as Greenville, you unlock the next one in that area. To access the Woodward levels, you must complete all of the amateur and pro challenges in Greenville. And to unlock the Pro Tour competition levels, you must do all of the amateur and pro challenges. Hardcore challenges are entirely optional, but you can unlock more stuff if you complete them. Challenges usually involve things like jumping over an obstacle or gap, grinding on, jumping over, or knocking down a set number of objects, or reaching certain height and grind distances. Like in the sequel, spots where you can complete the challenges are highlighted for you in certain colours, which helps a lot, as many of these assets can look pretty similar to each other. You unlock sponsorships, new attire, and improved bikes as you progress. When you complete all challenges and medal in every competition, you unlock a pro video of your chosen rider, as well as some hidden cheats. You can also unlock secret characters, including our old mate, the Slim Jim guy, who later became part of the main roster in Dave Mirra 2. As well as ProQuest, there's also a session mode, where you can chase high scores in levels you've unlocked within a 2-minute timer, Free Ride, which is the same as Free Skate and Tony Hawk, and a 2-player mode, which was exclusive to the PlayStation and Dreamcast ports. I didn't try this mode like all my other retrospectives, but multiplayer modes include Best Run, Random Spot, Wipeout, which plays into the ragdoll physics I mentioned earlier, and Longest Grind, among several others. There's also a Cool Stuff section, which includes the level challenges, high scores, videos, and the game's credits. Cheats can also be entered in the options menu. The soundtrack may be small, but it packs a solid punch of early 2000s energy, with a mix of punk, hip-hop, and nu metal. Highlights include Be Quiet Fight and Drive Far Away by Deftones, Dust by Cypress Hill, and What I Got by Acclaim regulars Sublime. Like other Acclaim extreme sports games, you can change the song in the in-run options menu or turn the music off entirely. Like some later Acclaim titles, the same track can loop if you're doing multiple runs on the same level, which is a bit annoying, but thankfully there is the option to change it during a run. To round out the audio experience, a fireworks sound is made when you complete a challenge, which is a nice touch, and when you bail, you can hear your rider groan from the impact. All stock sound design stuff for the 32-bit era, but it's still satisfying in its own way. Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX may not be as refined or rich in content as its sequel, but for the time, it was a bold first ride, and one that helped push BMX games into the mainstream. It brought the structure of Tony Hawk into a new sport, introduced a solid trick system, and gave fans of BMX something with real attitude, instead of just being a knockoff. It wasn't perfect though. Some of the controls were rough, grinds were finicky, and the challenges could feel a bit samey, but there was nothing else quite like it in 2000. And looking back, it laid the foundation not just for Dave Mirra 2, but also for other BMX titles that would follow, including Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX, and even BMX XXX, for better or worse. I think what really gives this game weight is Dave himself. This wasn't just a licensing deal slapped on a generic product. His writing, style, and influence were all over this game. And for many of us, it was the first time we really saw BMX treated with this level of respect in gaming. It all started with this game, and with a rider that changed BMX forever. Thank you for watching this one. What are your memories of this game? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. There are playlists for other Acclaim extreme sports titles in this card, as well as one for Tony Hawk games if you wanted to watch them. There are also channel memberships and a Ko-fi page if you'd like to support the channel further. And by the way, I got my first channel membership very recently, so thank you to the legend that signed up. I wasn't sure if you wanted to be singled out or not in this video, but let me know in the comments if you'd like shoutouts in future videos. You know who you are, and thanks again. If you'd like to join them and be part of every video's end credits, there is a link in the description. But even just you watching this one helps me keep making videos like this. My name is OneHip, and you have a good one. Bye!